time in Poland or Warsaw, but in this event. So thank you for having me. This morning I'm going to talk about some unusual places that attackers can hide in your domain infrastructure on-prem, and in order to move on-prem and also to the cloud. And we'll discuss how to detect it and also how to mitigate it. Instead of asking where you're from, I just want to tell you, no matter what you're doing, if you're a red teamer, or there are red teamers in the crowd? Okay, me too. It doesn't matter if you're a blue teamers in the crowd? Okay. Or maybe if you're a purple teamer, which is also fine. Or maybe if you're just like me, an old school guy, I'm just an old school hacker. Or your average cybersecurity professional. I promise you, we have something for each and every one of you. A bit about myself, I've been with computers for a while. I recently celebrated 37 years to my first computer prompt. Those systems are gone from the planet today. They're just in museums. Back in the day, to be a hacker in the 80s, you needed to know hardware. Today, you need to know, to hack, you need to know English. That's it. You don't need to know hardware, code, interpret, nothing. So I have a very vast red team experience, but also purple, blue, DFIR. We do a lot of incident response in the Middle East, especially, and Europe. I also work with Tandem Trace. It's a SOC AI threat hunting automation. And I've been around mostly with Microsoft. I worked for a decade in Microsoft, wrote some code also into Microsoft tools, support tools. Been part of Javelin, which was acquired by Symantec in 2018. But essentially, I love to balance. So I volunteer quite a lot. I play in professional guitar, and I also fly airplanes. So what we'll talk about, like I said, we'll talk about potentially some less known Microsoft backdoors, on-prem hybrid environments, and of course, more important, how to detect or mitigate them. Most of them don't have really proper mitigation, so I went ahead and wrote those tools. So I will be sharing tips and tools, open source partial tools, to detect them. If time permits, hopefully, then I can show you and discuss some tips how you can detect lateral movement very, very early, very fast, without buying any product. Which is always good. I should say that those backdoors, some of them are my own research, some I discovered, me and my team, in incident response in the Middle East with some geopolitical nation-state incident response cases, which is very interesting, you know, to be linked to some potential Russian APTs, etc. So this should be fun. It's really hard to imagine that we are in year 2025 Active Directory, sorry, Anno Domini, what is the same? It's hard to imagine that we're with the fourth decade of Active Directory's life since the 90s, and still all those misconfigurations exist. I should thank Paula for her keynote this morning. I strongly believe in what she said about the misconfigurations, because it's very, very easy with even one single misconfiguration or excessive permission in your environment. It's very, very easy to get a domain admin, and from domain admin to get the global admin in your cloud is very, very easy. Really easy in a matter of minutes. And admins like to keep all their passwords and links to all the management, to the vCenter, all the management tools, etc. in their browsers, which is amazing. So modern attacks, normally, domain admin is just the beginning, right? In our team, after we bypass the NAC from socket in the wall, with the average untreated attack surface management, our average is 7 minutes to a highly privileged account, domain admin or equivalent. So this is like the technology we have in the office. One of the technologies, we crack passwords 8 to 9 characters is a matter of minutes, but anything else is also less than, normally it's like very few hours. So for an adversary looking to dwell in your network for a long time, these are the options that I'm going to show you how to really stay in the network as a fly on the wall. So we're not talking in this session, not talking about the ransomware hit and run. We're talking about advanced persistent threat, right? About staying in your network for a long time without you being able to detect, or it will take you some time to detect in the SIEM alerts. And this is the whole story right here. So essentially, on the top, we have the attacker sort of steps, attack anatomy. And on the bottom, we have the defense steps, right? The routine, monitoring, detection, etc. The organization, the defense, you essentially live in uncertainty. You live in 24/7 zone of uncertainty. You can tell yourself you know, but we don't know what we have. And the attacker lives a window of opportunity. This is my 30 seconds explanation of cybersecurity. Okay, so it's easy to see that if an attacker, after intelligence collection, etc., the point of entry, it's when the window of opportunity really starts for the attacker. And for you, the zone of uncertainty ends on the first detection, on the first true positive detection. And it's easy to see that the window of opportunity goes well with the zone of uncertainty. So the less you know to detect well, the window of opportunity for the attacker will grow. This is all the talk is about. It's about how to narrow this window for a bit unusual backdoors. So the first one, who knows what is admin SD holder? It's a very basic one, and still it's amazing to see 2-3 hands in the audience. This is something that exists since the 90s. So essentially, here we have a user, normal user, Kai. Kai is a very simple domain user. He has no permissions on privileged AD groups. You can see for laughs, I'm trying to get the $C of the domain controller. Of course, it will fail. And as you saw, he's just a member of domain users. That's it. But Kai can also go to some built-in group, some privileged group, for example, enterprise admins, which is highly privileged, right? And he can open that group. For now, it has 1 member, right? This is like sort of the top admins for the forest level. And he can add another user that he wants. For example, Ashley, he can apply, okay, and it works. So how can this work? So if you go to and look on the container, system container called admin SD holder, which we have in every domain, there is a security descriptor on that object, and essentially the permissions on that system container get automatically propagated every 60 minutes by default from the PDC emulator to all the privileged users and groups. So the permissions you see here are the permissions you will get for enterprise admins, backup operators, server operators, cart operators, all the ones that are controlled by the admin SD holder. This is essentially a good thing. Microsoft back in the 90s, when they planned admin SD holder, this was essentially a mechanism to protect built-in administrative groups, like its name implies, administrative security descriptor holder. And this system container corresponds to the 16th character of the DS heuristic attribute and the configuration naming context, which essentially controls the admin count 1, right? And the ACL propagation to all the groups and accounts happens with a process called SD-prop. You will have the presentation. I will skip this slide because you have the presentation and all the scripts is ready on GitHub. So on my GitHub, you will get the slides and all. So just so you know, these are the groups that are protected. SD-prop, essentially, like I said, runs every hour. If you will ask LLMs or the internet, it will tell you that there is a registry key that you can change the frequency. I will tell you it's not working. Last time I saw the code of Windows Server inside, it's a hard-coded threat in the code. It's not checking for any registry key. It's commented in the Microsoft build code. But you can trigger it. You can trigger it by setting a task on the root DSC, the root LDAP server, run protect admin group task equal 1. I will show in a minute in the demo, and you have the code on my GitHub. It's impossible to imagine that this exists from version 1 of Active Directory, from Windows NT5, Windows 2000, and detections for this only began this last year. So most identity protection products like MDI, Microsoft's identity protection, CrowdStrike, IDP, etc., will have an alert today after I spoke to them about that, but they do not show the entity that was added or removed. So CrowdStrike will be a bit more specific about that and show that there was an addition, an ACL, privileged ACL, but not tell you where. So which is better than Microsoft, but still you should have alerts on modifying the 16 character of DS heuristic. This attribute you should know. No product checks for that today, according to my last check. And when you change that, it doesn't even do the admin count equal 1. And any unprivileged user with permissions on that container should be considered privileged. So how do we detect that? We need to see the ACL modification, and we need to remove the ACE, the access control entry, from the ACL of admin SD holder. And you can leverage also all kinds of change management, audit systems, but you can also use a script I created, invoke admin SD holder permission check, which essentially shows you what was added and removed, also with comparing to a previous run, or it will, by default, if you run it, it will just tell you what has changed from a default installation of Active Directory, what was added since you installed it in the domain. So here we are looking at one of the privileged groups that is protected by admin SD holder, essentially the built-in administrators group, right? It's a default group in Active Directory, and you see this user Kai has full permissions, right? He has full control, and we remove it. We remove it because he should not be there, right? And we can see after we apply, user Kai does not have the full control. But when we run this protected task again, admin SD holder, you can see that the permissions are back. So they are persistent. The reason is that the permissions are coming, of course, not from the group. The groups themselves, domain admins, enterprise admins, etc., they're coming from admin SD holder. Only after you will edit, like I show you here, directly the admin SD holder properties, and you remove it from the container directly and apply, and then run the task again, or wait 60 minutes as you prefer, only then will the built-in protected administrative groups and users will lose this malicious vulnerable ACL. And like I told you, this is my script on GitHub, invoke admin SD holder permission check. It will show you what was removed or modified also between a previous check, etc. So you are welcome to use it. Second, moving forward, no local admin, no problem. How can you do remote execution on any machine without local admin? So I want to show you another backdoor, which was interesting to discover in multiple networks, by the way. Here I have user Kai, right, on my machine, LonCL1. You can easily see using the default AD commands that is member only of domain users. And if we look at the Kerberos tickets in my session currently, you see I have TGS for CIFS, the domain controller, but not to SRv2. I try to access SRv2, a member server in the domain, and I get access denied because I don't have permissions, of course. You can see the authentication succeeded because I got the TGS. But you know, Kerberos is about authentication, not authorization. So something in the ACL blocked this because I'm not a global local admin. But wait a minute, if I use WMI, I can query that server, the same server. That's interesting. Okay. So what about invoking a WMI method? So here I am just deciding to invoke on the remote server, that server, SRv2, which I don't have access to, apparently. I do a create method on Win32 process, and you can see it succeeded. Return value 0 means success. I created a new CMD, a remote CMD on that server. So that server should be running my CMD of user Kai at the moment. And if we switch to the VM of that remote server, SRv2, you can see here I'm running a different user, a local admin on this server. But you can see if I run the get process, you can see that this CMD was actually created. So this user created remote executed code on that machine. And I just want to be sure, together with you, so we will look at the local computer management, and we will look at the groups, local administrator groups, and you can see clearly that user Kai is not a member, obviously, of domain admins, but is also not a local admin, and he's not even a member of any other group for that matter, like remote management users, remote desktop users, it's all empty. But if we go very, very down to WMI control and we look at the properties of the WMI repository, and we will look at the security descriptor of SIM-v2, the namespace for the most of the WMI classes, you will see here, voila, this is the configuration, the deliberate misconfiguration backdoor, which added user Kai with the specific WMI permissions of enable remote and invoke methods. And once you enable an account for remote invocation of code, that's what you get. So to detect these hidden WMI backdoors, I created this PowerShell script, get WMI permission anomaly. You can run it. By default, it runs on the entire domain or a specific machine as you request. And this can show you all kinds of entities that have those permissions. It essentially scans for the baseline, and it just compares what it should be and what it found that is not there normally. So when you run the script, like I said, you can also choose the namespace because there are multiple ones. By default, it's root SIM-v2, which is the most common one, but you can check any namespace, and you can run it on any machine remotely. Here you can see I got a warning that I have user Kai with those execute methods and enable remote. You can also run it with get all domain servers, and it will run through WinRM, and it will run on all the servers in your domain and show you these results. By the way, it works really well and fast with WinRM on even large networks. Please remember to consider recursive group management, recursive nested groups, because a group can be a member of a group, and then you have to take into account the cumulative permissions. This is what you get in the PAC, in the privileged attribute certificate of your TGT. And a note about recursive group membership. There are the PowerShell commands. You have a get AD group member, which shows you all direct members, but not recursive. You can actually run on a group AD group member group name minus recursive. It will get you all the users, but without the direct groups, but just all the recursive users of a group. But Microsoft does not have a command to show you all the recursive groups per user, just per group. So I went ahead and created that. So you have my script get AD principal Kerberos token group, which gets you all the recursive group per user, any user. By the way, anybody can run it. This is essentially an S4U, right? A service to user implementation. It shows you the effective pack for any user, including the seed history enumeration, which we'll touch in a minute. You can run it for other users. It just needs the user to be enabled, not locked, and not disabled, of course. And you can run it from my GitHub. So, speaking of detecting sensitive users, sensitive privileged accounts, how many of you are using admin count equal 1 to detect privileged accounts? Or you count on that as a... Okay, there are a few. How many of you use group membership, if it's a member of domain, admin? How many of you are doing pack enumerations to see what is the nested, the real group permissions? None, okay. How many of you are using a control path or attack path in tools like, Bloodhound, CrowdStrike IDP, things like that, Ping Castle? Okay, so there are a few maybe. I would say that most people, when you ask them, like also in this room, they will say admin count and group membership, right? But this is actually the last places you should check for who is privileged or not, because to be honest, pack enumeration is very important. This will show you if users are getting by mistake, maybe it's a misconfiguration or excessive permission, a nested inherited permission, because a group is a group in another group, like a IT group Matryoshka, right? So you should check that. And also the control path. It's normally I get to networks that people say I have 4 domain admins or 10, but when we check, we discover they have 400. because there is the IT group, the help desk group, the one that reset password, and in 2-3 steps, not more, hundreds of users can be a domain admin in a network of a few thousands of users. And this is a very common finding and one why ITDR is such a challenge. All right, moving on to the next backdoor, and now we're getting more and more warmer. This is seed history. How many of you know about seed history? Okay, also not enough. This is an attribute. It's actually an attribute that exists on a user, domain, computer, or group when you are doing domain consolidation or migrating between companies. Very common in merger and acquisition, etc., or decommissioning all domains. And this attribute essentially helps you to retain access to and permissions essentially to the old domain temporarily, just in terms of allowing this consolidation migration to finish. And during this consolidation, seed history, essentially what it does is you create the new account. The new account gets a new seed security identifier for the security principal, the user, etc., in the target domain. But it also has a property, an attribute called seed history, which keeps the binary seed of the previous domain. And when it authenticates in your TGT, you will have both the user seed, the new seed, and the old seed of the domain. And you can easily abuse that. You know, when you have the right permissions, even if you're not in a migration, you can populate seed history. And guess what? When you enter the seed, let's say seed 500 of administrator or 512, domain admins, etc., to any account, once they authenticate, they will get that seed in their TGT and they can have the permissions of that account. They don't need to know the password. It's even more easy than asymmetric security certificate vulnerabilities, etc. So it's great for privilege escalation to inject seeds. You will get that added with, and it's very good for persistence as a mechanism because it retains the elevated, the privileged access, regardless of the actual domain membership. Just the seed itself, even if the user changes password, it still retains the access. So that's why seed history cleanup is very important for you to run. It's one PowerShell command to see that. Let's see how the abuse happens. I'll show you in one way out of many. Here we have user Martin. User Martin, if we look at the seed history property of this simple user, you see it's empty now. So we begin this demo that user Martin does not have any permissions. If we look at the group domain admins of this domain, so we will see that it only has administrator and ADP. Obviously, it does not have Martin, right? And if we try to access the domain controller C $ drive, of course, we will get access denied. Until now, there is no surprise. This is the expected behavior. But now, let's look, by the way, let's look at this command, the one I have on my GitHub. I told you get ID principal secure Kerberos token group. If we look at user Martin with this command, you see is also a member of development and research teams. Which is very different than what Microsoft will show you, right? This is the default Microsoft command for group membership, and this is my command. So my command will show you what is the real group membership, and if it has seed history, it will also outline it. So this is just in terms of the tool, so you will know. But still, we have to do the seed injection. So let's do the abuse of the seed history. I will move to the domain controller. There are multiple ways to do that. You can also do it remote, like with tools like Mimikatz, etc. But I want to show you if I, like I said, I have privileged account and I want to do persistence, I will do this directly using DS internals. I stopped the NTDS service for a brief moment, injected the seed directly to NTDS DIT, and I start the services. By the way, how many of you have an alert in your SIEM for stop and start of NTDS service? I guess right? Nobody. Okay, so take a note. Your NTDS should never stop in middle of the day, and nobody has an alert about that. It's amazing, really. So if the NTDS was stopped and started, only bad things. This means only bad things. No IT guy insane in his life will ever do that. This can be an injection of seed history directly to the database. And now you see when we run the same command, get ID principal Kerberos token group to Martin, we can see highlighted that we have a seed history, and this seed history is of domain admins, because I injected the seed ending with the relative ID 512 to that user, Martin. This command can also work for any other user. I just want you to see that it doesn't need special permissions. If this user is enabled, not locked out, and not expired, this command will work on any user in your entire Active Directory. Also on computers, right? It will show you also group membership for computers. It doesn't matter. It just works with any security principle. Last thing that I want to show you on this is, of course, to show you that it worked. Quick question, why this is access denied still? Why it's not working? Any idea? Of course, because we have the old TGT. It's an existing session. We need to create a new TGT. So either klist purge and relog in, or you can do run as. I don't know if you know, but when you do a secondary logon type 9, you create the TGT again. So we just do run as again with the same user, Martin, and this time, voila, we get the permissions because we have CD story. Okay, so how to protect against it? You need to audit and remove. Just look for all the CD story equal, not equal null, and remove unnecessary seed values. Pay attention that you cannot clear the attribute. There is a inherited limit in the database on the interface. You need to modify, you will get access denied. You need to modify exact seed. So you need to know the value you want to remove. So you can run this very simple command. Like I told you, the slides and the code is on my GitHub. You can download it even now. So you need to have the right value. So just make sure you document it first before making the changes. Sometimes IT departments can say, yeah, we don't need that permission anymore. It's very old. But you discover you still need it, so you can always recover it. You can feel free to try my get AD principal Kerberos token group command. Essentially, it's the upgraded PowerShell AD membership per user that shows you also the seed history. You can enable, you should enable seed filtering in trust between if you have trusted domains. Monitor for DC shadow abuse, and any NTDS did add SIM detections properly, as we discussed. And if you are doing a new migration and you don't need to retain access to previous resources, then simply disable CD story in the migration. By default, people normally leave that. The final backdoor I want to discuss is about abusing Unicode characters or special Unicode characters on AD objects. Some Unicode characters, you know, we have Unicode since Windows 2000, and it allowed us to have Cyrillic, all kinds of right to left languages, BiDi, etc. But some Unicode characters don't translate well to ASCII. This means that there is a bunch, like 20 characters at least, that are like zero with a joiner, no break space, etc., that adversaries can leverage and inject null strings. They may appear meaningless or empty, but it's not. This can help us to do a few things that confuse SIM and SOC and threat hunting teams tremendously. For example, we can create 2, 3, 10 users with the same account name, but they will all look as if they're coming from the same user, but it can be 2, 3 different users. We can also create 2 containers with the same name, etc., etc. Very, very confusing, and it will delay investigations considerably. So let's see how this abuse is looking. So first of all, I'm creating in this case a no breaks zero with a joiner, ZWJ. You can see this character. This is how it looks in ASCII. And ask yourself, can we create a new user with this name, which is essentially an empty space in a way, right? Let's try. So we're going to create a new AD user and force it, give it a new password. Of course, naturally, we want to give it a quick description. We will also create it enabled while we're at it. And I think that's about it. So the new user was created. And now I'm going to add this user to domain admins. If I look at domain admins in the domain, right? I want to add this user. $X, which is essentially the new user I created, and it was completed successfully. Let's look at domain admins group membership, and voila. So, do you see our user? Yeah, it's right here, right? Okay, that's pretty funny. And you say, okay, does this work? Let's try. Run as this user, which has no name, but as you can see, it works. This works, and it's pretty confusing when you see this running as. So imagine your logs when I'm running something like this in my red team on your logs. Very terrible abuse. I personally love the no break space, so you can use all of them. So how do we detect it? So again, not something that Microsoft knows about or even has anything to detect. So I went ahead and created search string in AD, a PowerShell script. Essentially, this is a recursive lookup for any string. So I said, while I'm doing that, it looks for each and every property of each and every object in your Active Directory. So you can search for any string, for example, password. Or it can also find IP addresses because it's just a regex, it's a pattern. And you can also find, of course, and look for hidden Unicode characters on objects. If you find no break space in things that are not same account name, which is not the login name of a user, that can be a benign finding in Microsoft environment, so that's okay. But any Unicode characters, hidden Unicode characters on same account name should be investigated and should be considered wrong. So let's look at that in action. So this is the script that you can use. You can search for anything. For example, here I'm searching for the word change. So the word change in my entire lab domain just appears in two places, in the curb TGT and users, because the word change was in one or more of the attributes. I can also search for IP addresses, for example. Here, of course, you can have some false positives because it looks only in this regex of the octet, 4 octet between 1 to 255, etc. But you can see some interesting values here. For example, you can see on some attribute, info attribute, IP modifications, etc. And of course, like I mentioned before, because we're discussing this backdoor, I can also do the hidden search for hidden Unicode characters parameter, and I will just speed it up a bit. And you can see that it found a few. So some of them are benign, like I said, but there are some very bad ones. If I filter the grid for same account name, you will find here a few characters that are really bad, and these things you can and should probably look in your environment. So we have some time, which is great. I want to discuss some example, very quick example or two, which help you detect lateral movement in your network very, very fast without investing in products. I'm a big believer of living off the land. I don't like to buy products. I love to do small things that don't cost money and work better than most of the products out there. So let's give an example from a ransomware deployment protocol. This is the Windows admin favorite feature. I guess you all know this ransomware deployment protocol, RDP, of course. And I want to ask you a question. Feel free to answer. How would an adversary in your network detect all RDP hosts very quickly, very stealthy? And you can answer, please. I have a network, 10,000 computers. I want to know all the ones that are open in RDP, that they have RDP installed and enabled on them. And I don't want to use Nmap. I don't want to be noisy. I don't want to query machines. Any idea? We look at the network yellow pages. Network yellow pages in Active Directory is, of course, Active Directory, LDAP. If you do this LDAP filter, it's just 3 words. ADSI searcher, service principal name includes term SRV, which is short for terminal server in the SPN. It will find all the SPNs that have term SRV in the network. Pay attention that every time you enable remote desktop, you enable a remote desktop on any machine, including clients on Windows 10, 11, etc., it updates an SPN, a service principal name in Active Directory for that machine. So you can also detect, by the way, for a red teamer, you can also easily detect all the hosts that don't have NLA, network level authentication, and open in RDP. This is LDAP filters you should have in your detection. And now I'm thinking with you together, right? If we have a network of 10,000 users and hundreds of servers, how many users should know the RDP port? By default, RDP is, of course, 3389, right? We all know that. Let's say if I change that port to 50055, whatever. How many people need to know about this change in a 10,000 users network? I don't know. Maybe I can count them on two hands. Maybe. Why not change the RDP port? Why not change any standard port of any management tool? Because who needs to know that RDP is accessible now in port 3389? Your users? No. Your manager? No. The attackers? Certainly not. Only like 4 or 5 people in IT that want to access that, right? So why not change it and monitor any access on the default port as a high fidelity alert, which means that anyone that tries to access, if he got info stealer, he got the credentials, etc., regardless of MFA or anything, regardless of checking logs for failed authentication, if anybody wants to access RDP in the default port, it's an alert. Boom, you know something is wrong. Because either that IT guy is back from, or woman is back from vacation and he didn't know we changed the port, or there is a curious user, or there is an attacker in your network. So this is the way you buy yourself extra time. You delay the adversary. And this is a very important notion to keep in mind. If it's a little harder for you, it's much, much harder for an adversary. And if it is very convenient for you, you just, boom, open MSTSC, enter, and you're inside the server with the default port, then it's very, 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 very easy for the attacker. You won't believe how fast we understand your networks in a matter of minutes. Most of the times, after less than 10 minutes, we know the network better than the IT and system that is managing that for years. That's the attacker mindset, and you should be aware of that. You can extend that notion, final word, about service cloaking. Not only to change the port on RDP, WinRM, etc., you can actually do a port knocking, so the service is not even listening until you send the crafted UDP packet, and only when we get this packet, then we expose the port, and when you disconnect, the port is closed again. You shouldn't be listening on management ports 24/7. This is what I say about living off the land, right? Not counting on products, because everybody, the products you use, Microsoft, CrowdStrike, etc., your adversaries have them. Cyber criminals have them. Nation states have them. They learn them, and they can reverse engineer them, and they come prepared. What they don't know is maybe you changed the RDP port. This they don't know, right? And this doesn't cost money. So key takeaways: adversaries, like I showed you a few examples of creative backdoors, they can get really interesting with persistence mechanisms. Be ready to detect them. Create your own creative defense tactics. Please embrace time-based security mindset. It means to build defense that buy you time and delay the adversary. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. You will get hacked. You will have a cyber incident. The only question we have in mind is not if you will be hacked or not, is how long will it take for you to detect and stop it, and if it will be a big event or a small event. So, and the way to control it is to buy time and delay the adversary. Be in the adversary shoes, look for your adversaries, threat hunting 24/7, and feel free, of course, to get the tools from my GitHub. With that said, dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
This form.
Yes, kind request to rate the session. It was great, but of course, please fulfill the survey. Any questions or comments? On the Slido platform, there is only one entry from my side, because during the talk I've added the link to your GitHub repo. So thank you for those trips, for those resources. I encourage you to visit. On the left side, you can see the hamburger menu and a new entry related to this repository. No questions or comments?
Any questions? If not, I'll be available here to answer.
Thank you, Yossi. All the best. A round of applause.
Thank you.